So if any of you are familiar with the E36 chassis, you know that one of its biggest failure points has to do with its interiors. They just weren't made very well, and considering the fact that these cars are rounding 3 decades old at this point, there's a pretty good chance that if your E36 interior components haven't been restored at this point, that they're probably in need of it. And my car is no exception. That's why I have the door panel off of this door. I plan on restoring the door panels in this car. I'm gonna rewrap them completely with new materials. I'm gonna be fixing the clip brackets because they're notorious for coming undone and then your door panels basically not being held up by anything. And I figured though, while we have the door panel off and I'm kind of waiting on materials to show up, that I can get in here and perform some preventative maintenance for the window mechanism. Another huge failure point on these cars has to do with the mechanisms that control the window regulator, the window regulator motor, the window regulator clips, all that stuff are prone to failure. And mine still works. I am having some issues with this window in particular, not so much on my driver's side, but I figure, before anything fails catastrophically and I have to start looking for new parts, hopefully I can get the parts out, clean them up, re-grease everything, put some new clips in there, and get this working really good and hopefully get at least another few years out of these parts. And I figure why not walk you guys through that process too, in case you're having something similar happen to your E36, or you just want to refresh some parts that are old on these cars, because there's a good chance, like I said, if they haven't been refreshed, that they're in need of refreshing. So let me show you guys the problem I'm having with this side, and then we'll get into taking all of the stuff off of the door. So the issue I'm having with my passenger side window is sometimes when I roll it up, when it gets to about a quarter of the way, it will think something is in the way. It'll kind of activate the jam protection and then it will stop rolling up. And the theory I've had so far, you could see when I go to roll the window up sometimes that the window will sort of shift a little bit before it rolls up. It doesn't go perfectly smooth up and down. And I imagine because of that little shifting, I assume maybe there's like dust in the window runs, or maybe I haven't cleaned the car in a while, and it's just enough resistance to activate the jam protection, which basically just means that, imagine someone had their arm out the window and you went to go roll it up, it would feel that there's something in the way and stop rolling up, which you want, because if it did keep rolling up, not only would you crush whatever's in the way, but you risk breaking parts. Like if it's trying to roll up and it can't roll up and it's the motor is still trying to spin move the regulator, you're going to bend parts or break parts or fry the motor. And so anyways, because of that, tilting of the window a little bit, I think it's just enough resistance to sometimes stop it from wanting to roll up. And when that happens, I end up doing one of these like dances here where I press the button like 20 times to get it to roll up. And so anyways, hopefully when we get in there and start taking parts out, we'll see that ideally it's like a clip issue or like old dried grease. Hopefully I don't have a bent window regulator because I don't really want to try to unbend it, but nonetheless, start taking the things out of the door and getting everything cleaned up. Here we go. All right, so first step to gaining access to everything behind the door panel is obviously to get the door panel off first. Yours probably isn't going to look like this. This is the one I'm going to be restoring first. So that's why it looks like this. I've already stripped all the fabrics and materials off and whatnot. But anyways, in case you don't know how to remove your door panel, behind the door pull here to close the door when you get in the car, there's going to be these 2 little holes. Typically there's some covers right here, some plastic covers. You'll just kind of pry them out of the way, and then you'll get access to 2 Torx screws back here. You'll remove those, and then you want to get your door handle trim removed out of the way. And the way to do that, whether it be on the passenger side like this or on the driver's side, is all you're going to do is push the trim towards the front of the car. So basically you'll push it forward like this. There's a couple of like little hooks on the back and it will come out. And then once you have that out, assuming the clip brackets on the back of the door panel are still good and your door panel is still clipped to the door, you'll basically kind of pry the door panel off of the door. You'll unclip it around the perimeter of it, and then once it's loose, the last thing you'll have to do is obviously disconnect the speaker wires over here. But then that's it. It should come off, and then you have access to everything else underneath the door panel. And now we can start diving into removing all of these parts. All right, so next step, if you have it, is to remove this sound insulation. It's only held on with some like adhesive, like some butyl tape or something. But I'm gonna gently remove all of this, and then we will start to get into removing what we can regarding the window mechanism. All right, so as you can see, we have full access to everything behind the door panel now, and I can already see that this is a worthwhile project, because if you look down here, that is one of the clips that the window regulator snaps into and is usually what slides around in this track. But as you can see, the window regulator is not clipped into this clip, and this clip is completely broken apart. And so this is definitely why my window is kind of shifting in place when I'm rolling it up and down. Thankfully, the front one is still intact. I think that's what's made it so this regulator hasn't bent yet. But, you know, like I said, if, you know, you have an E36 and you haven't addressed this kind of stuff, there's a pretty good chance that it's in need of addressing, because these are old cars and not everybody is maintaining them the way they should be. So I'm glad that we got in here before anything broke. But now I'm going to go ahead and start taking things out of the door, kind of figuring out, you know, what I got to clean, what I got to re-grease, what I got to replace, and then we can start putting it all back together. Also, one other thing I want to mention before I start actually ripping things out. I'm actually kind of surprised because, you know, considering the age of these cars, usually people have been in here before and taken the window regulator out because they're so common to fail. But in my case, I could tell that no one's been in here. At least, you know, if they have, then they kind of went the hard way putting it back together. So as you can see, from factory, these window regulators are riveted in. They are not nut and bolted on. And so typically, if people take these out, you know, they drill these rivets out, they end up putting nuts and bolts back on, so that way they don't, you know, have to deal with drilling it out again if they ever have to get in here. And the fact that mine has rivets either means no one's ever been in here, or someone riveted these back into place. But either way, if this is the case and you do have to take your window regulator out, you are going to have to drill these out and then just get nuts and bolts to secure this back together. There are 1, 2, 3 under these wires, 4, and then over here, 5 securing points that attach the window regulator and motor to the door itself. So I'm gonna go ahead and drill these out and start taking everything apart, and then I'm gonna have to run to the store and get nuts and bolts. But either way, I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you weren't aware, what to expect if you plan on doing this project, or, you know, removing your window regulator for any reason. All right, so I officially have everything out of the door, all of the window components, as well as the door handle and the door lock actuator. I wanted to show it to you guys like this because I felt like this was going to be an easier visual than trying to film with really poor lighting and weird camera angles with this stuff in the door. Felt like this is, you know, going to be a better visual for you guys to kind of understand what you have to remove, all the little like nuts and bolts and stuff. And this is exactly how it is in the door. I kind of loosely secured everything. But anyways, if you want to take this stuff out, I suggest starting with your window regulator and motor, because this, to be able to get your window like track out, you got to lift the window up and kind of slide this out sort of this way. And there's some stuff up here that kind of get in your way. And so the window kind of has to go up in order to do it. But anyways, in order to take your window regulator out, you guys saw earlier that mine did have the 4 rivets that I had to drill out. I was telling you guys about it. Hopefully yours only have bolts, but I did have rivets. I drilled them out. And then over here, there's a 5th bolt. It's a 5mm hex bolt that secures from the underside. There's a bracket on the door that this bolts to. So you got to kind of get your hand in there and, you know, obviously loosen this up. But once you have those 5 out, the last thing you got to do is unclip it from the clips, assuming yours are still clipped in. If they are, the way I found to undo them the easiest is basically, imagine there is a clip on this, And what you're gonna have on the clip is this little like, you know, retaining pin basically. And this, imagine there's a plastic clip on this too. This is how it secures the window regulator from popping out. And so what you wanna do is just get a tool or something in there, a pick, and basically pull this pin out. And then you can pop this out of the clip, and then this whole thing would be free. And then, as far as the window run goes, you got to imagine that this is bolted to the door, so the window is going to go up and down, but it's able to kind of slide on this track right here. What's holding this in is two 10mm bolts on top, two 5mm hex bolts on the bottom that you get from the outside of the door, and then two 10mm nuts that secure this little L bracket that's attached to the window to the rollers. And then probably the hardest part of this job is getting these bolts out to get this bracket out, because this bracket is too big to fit or to allow the window to come out of the top of the door. And so you do have to take this bracket off. It's held in by two 4mm hex bolts that you have to get from the underside. And the way I found to do it is to kind of lift the window up and kind of lean it in the door. And then you have access to kind of get to it from the backside over here. And then lastly, you also have to get these kind of, I don't even know what these are, locks, probably secure, you know, these little tracks on the window from moving, because they kind of bolt to the window and then bolt to the track. And I'm sure it, you know, is just more support. But basically there's a 10mm bolt here, a 10mm bolt here, and then it'll just slide out. And then same thing for this one over here. There's a 10mm bolt here and a 10mm bolt up top. And that's everything for this. Also, I did forget, I did take the window regulator motor out. The only thing holding this to the regulator are these three T30 Torx screws. And once you take it out, or once you take these screws out, it'll just pop out. But yeah, that's everything as far as the window mechanism goes. Now I'm gonna show you guys the door handle and the door lock actuator. Just while I have them out, I figured I'd talk about them. This will kind of be like a whole door / window component mechanism restoration video, I guess we can call it. But yeah, let's move over to that stuff, and then we'll, you know, clean all this stuff up and get it tossed back in the car. All right, so here we have the door lock actuator, the outside door handle mechanism, and then the inside door handle. And you can kind of get an idea for how this whole thing works. You got to imagine you pull the handle here, it pulls this rod, which releases the mechanism to allow this latch to undo, and then you can open your door. And then the same thing happens, you know, obviously with the outside door handle, you pull it, it'll pull this up, and then it will, you know, release this latch and you can open the door. To be able to take this out, there are three T30 bolts. There's one here and then two on this side. And then once you're able to get, like, once you're in the door, you're able to undo this little, you know, I don't even know what this is, but, you know, for opening and closing and locking the door and stuff, you're able to get that out like this, but you're still secured right here, this little rod right here. And so what you're gonna wanna do is, if this is in the door, you'll get a screwdriver from the top of the door and you'll just pry that little rod out of the like tab that it's in. And so you'll basically pry it this way, and then once that's loose, then this will come out, because if you try to pull them out together, there just isn't room in the door to do it. But yeah, you'll just get a screwdriver, pop that out, and then this can come out, and then the door handle will come out separately. But now I want to show you guys actually how to get the outside door handle out, because it's a little challenging if you don't know how to do it. And I also can show you guys really clearly how to take this off. I know there's videos out there explaining it, but with the door handle off, it's way easier to show you guys, and then you get an idea for how to replace your, you know, trim and the little gasket around it if you ever want to do that. So let's talk about the outside door handle. All right, so here we have the door handle with the door handle trim secured in place. And so imagine you're looking at it like this, right? The door is closed and you want to, you know, take this whole mechanism off, but first you got to get this trim piece out. The way you do that, and like I said, it's very hard to see, you know, with this in the car, but imagine, you know, you open the door and now you're looking kind of at the side of the door. There's going to be a little like rubber piece that you kind of pull up and lift out of the way, and then you're going to have access to like a little hole. You're basically going to have a hole right here. And what you're looking for, this right here. Do you see this kind of little, yeah, there you go. You could see it right there. So you can kind of get a tool back there, you know, but that's what you're looking for. That is kind of like the securing, you can kind of almost call it a pin, but it, you know, it goes all the way the length across it. Like this is part of it too over here, but that is what retains the trim on it. And so what you do is if you're looking at it and you know you got a light in there, you're kind of looking down at it, you get a tool, and the secured position, like the locked position for this trim piece, is towards you and the unlocked is away. So if you watch, kind of put it at an angle here, if you watch, if I push it, or here, I'll even pull it from the other side. See it moving? Just like that. Locked, unlocked, locked, and unlocked. So if you're in there, you're looking at this, right? You'll take a tool, however it works for you. I usually use like an Allen key or something, flathead screwdriver, but you get in there and you push it, and then, as you can see, and then it's off. So yeah, as you can see, there's like little tabs on it too, so it's kind of hard to pull out, but yeah, that's what secures it in. And then it too, if you look at the little hole right there, yeah, look at that hole. So locked, you can kind of see at the top there, unlocked, locked, unlocked, and again, locked, unlocked. So that's how you take the trim out. Now I'm going to show you guys how to actually take this out of the door. All right, so here we're looking at the door handle assembly, like I was telling you guys. Now, if you want to take this out of the car, there's not a lot to it. I will say that I highly recommend having the window out. This is kind of a pain to take out if you have the window in, because if the window's in, you don't get a lot of viewpoint to see like what you're doing from the top of the door because the window's in the way. And then also if you try to roll the window down a little bit, then it's kind of in the way of like what you're doing with the door handle assembly itself. But aside from that, the way you take this out is, if you look right here, there's kind of this like ring around it with these little grooves. As you can see, mine turns, but this basically sandwiches the door between the handle assembly and this little ring right here. But you would basically take a flathead screwdriver or, you know, whatever tool of choice and just kind of gently tap it until it, you know, started spinning this thing. And then, you know, once it's loose, you can unscrew it all the way and take it off completely. Now, just a heads up, in case you weren't aware, there is a little like gasket, I'm assuming like a little weather seal that is under that. I already have mine off because it's kind of a pain to take off and I want to try to pry it off on camera. But yeah, it goes gasket, then this little like retaining nut. But once you have that off, you can, you know, from the back side, now you're, you know, looking inside of the door, obviously disconnect this connector. But as you can see right here, there's this little clip that holds this pin on right here. And this pin kind of does the same thing. It sandwiches, but you know, the door between the door handle assembly. But in order to get this clip off, see if I can do this with one hand here. Now, if you look right, you don't want to pry from this middle part. You want to pry from kind of this slit at the top right here. Not from here, but kind of from up here. So you basically get like a little screwdriver in there from the side. There we go. And then you lift it up until it starts to kind of come down. And then as you can see, you just kind of, you know, pull it off. And then this little pin comes out. And yeah, that's everything. That's all you need to take it out. Also, you know, this, I showed you a couple of clips ago, but this is connected to the door lock actuator. You would just kind of pry this out. Again, if this is, you know, you're looking at it, the door's open, you're sitting on the inside of the car, you would put a screwdriver in from the top of the door right here along flathead and then pry this out from the door lock actuator, and then this is free to come out of the door. And yeah, that's all there is to it. I want to get to cleaning all this stuff. I know I've rambled a lot so far in this video, but I was really trying to give you guys as much information as I can. I don't know if a lot of this stuff is like talked about in depth like this, but I figured, you know, if I'm gonna have it out anyways, I might as well make an episode for you guys. So hopefully you guys appreciate it. I'm gonna go ahead and start cleaning this stuff and get it installed back in the car because I'm sick of being in here and I'm sick of having this stuff out of the car, especially with no window. I can't really park this thing outside. So anyways, enough rambling. I'm gonna clean all this stuff up and then we'll start to reinstall it in the car. All right, so it's officially the next day. Yeah, everything is cleaned up. Everything is nice and smooth. All the tracks are greased. You know, everything for the regulator moves real simple. And the only thing left is the window over here. Now I wanted to show you this. I did spend some time last night cleaning this window track and putting a new clip in it. And then this one has the old clip, as you could see, and it's like hardened, you know, grease. Like whatever was in here is now hard and, you know, isn't doing anything. And so basically I wanted to show you, so check it out. After cleaning it up, you could see how easy that glides in there. This is the one that had the broken clip from earlier in the episode, but that's nice and easy. And then this one, watch. It literally won't move. It moves the entire window. Like I have to sit here and like really move it. And you can see it's picking up the old grease right here. So yeah, I'm actually surprised that the regulator wasn't more messed up. Like the fact that this clip, because this is the clip that was still attached to the regulator, I'm surprised that it wasn't more damaged because this clip does not want to move in there. And so I'm really lucky that the motor wasn't fried. But yeah, obviously this was in need of some refreshing. And so I'm gonna finish up this one. And then the last thing I'm gonna do before I toss everything back into the doors, I'm actually gonna take the tint off this window because I did mess it up a little bit when I was taking it out of the door. Not only that, but it's just one more thing that, you know, cops wanna mess with you with here in California. I have been pulled over for this in this car for tint, and thankfully the cop let me off with a warning. But nonetheless, considering I messed it up a little bit, you know, felt like rocking the fishbowl look. So I'm gonna take this off and then we'll finally start tossing everything back into the car. All right, everything is officially reinstalled in the door. Now I didn't film any of it because when I showed you guys everything out on the table, I was pretty clear and concise. And so if you understand how to take the stuff out of the door, you're gonna understand how to put it back in. Obviously, it's just the opposite of that. But nonetheless, I'm gonna call this a very successful preventative maintenance job done. If you guys made it to this point in the video, then you saw just how bad those window tracks were at the bottom with the old clips. I wasn't even able to move the clip on the one side because the grease had hardened so much. So anyways, once I got all of that cleaned out and re-greased, they were sliding really, really well. And then I pretty much cleaned and re-greased every other component in here that moves. The little rollers on the window run right here, the window regulator teeth, the window regulator motor teeth, everything that moved got re-greased. And now, like I said, the window works really, really well. And yeah, obviously I took the tint off too. It looks really good. I'm stoked on it. But anyways, enough rambling. I know this was a long video, and if you've been watching the last few of my videos, this was a little different than those, but I felt like this was a little more applicable to more of you guys than the race car stuff I've been doing to the car. And I was already gonna do this anyways because the door panel's off for the restoration, so I figured I'd throw this episode together and hopefully you got some value out of it, because I know this stuff is pretty common on these cars to fail, and you know, hopefully this is the video you use to help you kind of take the stuff out, refresh it, and then, you know, obviously put it back in. But anyways, if you made it this far in the video, thank you guys for watching. Definitely consider subscribing if you want to watch the door panel restoration happen. I actually just received the material I've been waiting on yesterday, so I could finally start kind of doing the restoration on the door panel. I'm really, really excited. It should be really cool and really unique. So again, if you want to see that, consider subscribing so you don't miss it. And if you want to watch any other video about this car, I have tons of videos. I'm getting this thing ready for the track. I've installed all sorts of track parts. You know, I've wrapped the car, all sorts of cool stuff. If you want to see any of that, definitely check those videos out. But yeah, enough rambling. If you made it to this point in the video, again, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you checking out today's episode, and I will hopefully catch you in the next one. Peace.